In a quiet, forgotten village surrounded by cracked fields and dusty winds, there lived a mother and her young son. Their little mud house stood at the edge of the village, with a small courtyard and an old, lonely neem tree whispering in the wind. Life was simple for them, but far from easy. The son, still in his teenage years, carried the silence of responsibility on his shoulders. His mother, gentle and hard-working, spent her days stitching clothes for the women of the village. Her fingers tired but her heart steady. She believed in one truth more than anything else: when everything else leaves you, faith stays. The son listened, but deep inside he wondered how faith could fill empty stomachs, or bring water to a thirsty village. One summer, the skies betrayed the village. No rainfall. No mercy. The riverbed turned to cracked earth. Animals became thin shadows. The crops died standing. The village's main well, their lifeline, became nothing but an empty hole echoing hopelessness. Every day, people lowered their buckets with trembling hope. And every day, they pulled them back up bone dry. The mother stored the last few drops of water in their clay pot. The son watched her sigh quietly when she thought he wasn't looking. Yet every early morning, before the first rooster crowed, the mother walked to a small abandoned well behind their house. A well that had been dry for 8 long years. The son once asked, "Why go to a well that has no water?" And she answered softly, "Because faith grows strongest in dead places." He didn't understand. Not yet. As days passed, the struggle tightened around them, like a rope with no slack. Food became rare. Work became impossible. Water became a treasure no one could afford to waste. The son tried to find work in nearby fields, but the drought had stolen everyone's livelihood. No crops. No harvest. No payment. Families began leaving the village. Huts were locked. Camels walked away with tired steps. The village looked abandoned by hope itself. One evening, the son sat beside his mother and whispered, "Is faith enough to change anything? Everything around us is breaking." She placed her hand gently on his head and said, "Faith may not change the world at once, but it changes the person who holds it. And that person changes everything else." Her words felt like warm light in a cold night, though the son still struggled to believe. The next morning, like always, the mother went to the abandoned well before sunrise. The son, curious and worried, followed her quietly. He watched her kneel, whisper a prayer, and lower a small clay pot tied with an old rope into a well everyone believed was dead. He finally asked, "Why do you keep doing this?" She replied, "Because miracles visit those who wait with faith, not fear." He didn't argue. He simply sat beside her, for the first time looking at the empty well, with a flicker of hope instead of doubt. That evening, as the son walked near the well, he heard a faint sound. Drip. 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 He froze. He listened again. The sound was real. Water. Somewhere deep below. He called out urgently. The mother rushed to him. Together, they leaned over the well's opening. The sound grew louder. Drip. 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 Tears welled in the mother's eyes. Her hands shook as she held the rope. Together, they lowered the clay pot. The rope went down deeper. And then, a soft splash. The pot had touched water. Water. After 8 long years. The son's heart pounded. The mother covered her face and cried out of sheer gratitude. When the pot came up, it was overflowing. Clear, shining, alive. The drought still ruled the land. The main village well was dry. But this forgotten, abandoned well had filled again. A miracle had quietly arrived. By morning, the entire village stood outside their house. People were shocked. Some were crying. Some whispering prayers. Others touching the water with trembling fingers. The elderly said, "This is a sign. Faith brings blessings even when the sky refuses to rain." The mother offered water to everyone, sharing the miracle rather than keeping it hidden. Soon, the villagers gathered around the field every evening, praying together with renewed hope. The son watched all this with a changed heart. He once said quietly to his mother, "I understand now. Faith doesn't fill vessels first. It fills hearts first." She smiled, her eyes shining. Many days passed. The drought still had not ended. But the abandoned well continued to give water. Drop after drop. Day after day. Then one afternoon, a cool gust of wind swept through the village. Dark clouds gathered overhead. Thunder echoed across the fields. And then, after months of dry heat, rain finally fell. It fell like heaven had opened its door. Children screamed with joy. Women let the rain soak their scarves. Men folded their hands in gratitude. The soil drank greedily. The field softened. Hope returned like a long-lost friend. The sun looked at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, for teaching me faith." Weeks passed. Green spread across the land like a miracle unfolding. Animals grew healthy again. Crops began to rise. The village came alive with laughter, work, and life. But the biggest change was inside the son. He became more patient, more grateful, more connected with the unseen strength of faith. The mother continued to visit the old well, not because it was empty, but because it had taught the greatest lesson. Faith revives what the world declares dead. Dear listener, life gives us empty wells. Situations that look impossible. Moments where nothing seems to change. But faith is lowering your bucket. Even when the world tells you the well is dry. Faith is standing firm. When everything else collapses. Faith is believing that something beautiful is waiting. Just when you are ready to give up. The miracle is not just the water. The miracle is the heart that refuses to stop believing. Hold faith. Hold hope. Hold patience. Because faith doesn't only change your life. It transforms your soul.